The early morning air in Dubai carried the scent of jasmine and betrayal when a sanitation worker discovered Maya Rahman's lifeless body crumpled behind Al Bahar Coffee House. Her hijab askew, coffee cup shattered across concrete, purse contents scattered. It looked like a robbery gone wrong. But appearances deceive, especially when powerful men have secrets to bury. Maya wasn't just another statistic in a police report. She was 24 years old, brilliant, ambitious, and trusted the wrong person with her life. The man she confided in, looked up to, sought guidance from? He wore the white robes of spiritual authority and commanded respect from thousands every Friday. But here's what will make your blood run cold. Before Maya died, she knew someone was coming for her. She left voice recordings on her phone, drafts scheduled to send if she disappeared. Her final message: if anything happens to me, Khalid knows everything. Have you ever placed complete faith in a religious leader? Someone you believed would never harm a soul? Do you know what it feels like to trust someone so completely that you'd follow them into darkness? Because Maya did, and that trust became her death sentence. This isn't just another true crime story about a young woman whose life was cut short. This is about how religious authority can become a weapon, how community respect can mask deadly intentions, and how a mosque in Dubai's glittering metropolis became the setting for manipulation, murder, and a conspiracy that reached into the highest echelons of power. Maya's killer didn't act alone. Phone records revealed a network of wealthy donors, hired enforcers, and shell companies designed to hide blood money. Security footage captured a white SUV registered to $1 million real estate empire. Financial records showed transfers that traced back to the very people Maya's community trusted most. The problem isn't just that Maya Rahman was murdered. It's that her killer almost got away with it because nobody questions a man of God. When religious leaders abuse their power, entire communities become complicit in the cover-up. When money flows through charitable donations, it can fund anything, including silence. What you're about to discover will change how you view religious institutions forever. The recordings Maya left behind expose not just an affair, but a web of corruption that used faith as camouflage and charity as a money laundering operation. If you're not subscribed to this channel, you're missing cases that will shatter everything you thought you knew about authority figures. We expose the stories mainstream media won't touch, the ones that reveal how power truly operates in the shadows. Maya Rahman tried to escape her killer. She documented evidence, planned her exit, and left breadcrumbs of truth. But when you threaten men who control both heaven and earth, death comes wearing a holy man's smile. Dubai rises from desert sand like a monument to human ambition. Glass towers reaching toward heaven, luxury cars purring through streets paved with oil money, and behind every fortune, secrets that would make devils blush. In this city where appearance means everything, the Noor Center Mosque stood as a beacon of progressive spirituality. Unlike the traditional mosques scattered throughout the Emirates, Noor Center attracted Dubai's educated elite. Young professionals, international families, university students, they flocked to Friday prayers not just for spiritual guidance, but for networking opportunities disguised as community service. The mosque's modern architecture featured soaring ceilings, marble floors, and conference rooms equipped with the latest technology. At the heart of this religious empire stood Imam Khalid al-Farouk, 43 years old and possessing the kind of charisma that filled auditoriums. His sermons weren't fire and brimstone condemnations. They were TED Talks wrapped in theological wisdom. He spoke about mental health, encouraged women's education, and hosted interfaith dialogues that earned him mentions in local newspapers. Khalid had cultivated his reputation carefully over 8 years. He held degrees from prestigious Islamic universities, spoke 4 languages fluently, and maintained relationships with government officials who valued his moderate voice in an increasingly complex world. When wealthy donors needed tax-deductible giving opportunities, they called Khalid. When foreign dignitaries visited Dubai and wanted to showcase religious tolerance, they toured Noor Center. The mosque's programs reflected Khalid's modern approach. Financial literacy workshops, career counseling sessions, youth entrepreneurship clubs, and a community library stocked with books in Arabic, English, and Urdu. Parents trusted him with their teenagers. Businessmen sought his blessing for new ventures. Women attended his wife Zainab's cooking classes every Thursday evening. But power creates hunger. And hunger, when fed by constant admiration and unchecked authority, grows into something monstrous. Behind his office door, Khalid kept detailed files on every congregant. Their businesses, family problems, financial situations, personal struggles. He called it pastoral care. But knowledge is leverage and leverage is control. He knew which families were struggling with debt, which marriages were failing, which young people were questioning their faith. When he recommended someone for a job, they got hired. When he suggested a business partnership, money flowed. When he endorsed a charity drive, donations poured in by the thousands. The mosque's board trusted his judgment completely. After all, hadn't he tripled their membership in just 5 years? Drop where you're watching from in the comments. Are religious leaders held to higher standards in your country? Or do they operate with the same unchecked authority we see here? The tragedy isn't that Maya Rahman walked into this environment unprepared. The tragedy is that everyone saw Khalid exactly as he wanted to be seen, the perfect Islamic leader for a modern world. His smile never wavered during sermons. His voice never betrayed the calculations running through his mind. His handshake never lingered inappropriately, at least not where anyone could see. But Maya would soon learn that the most dangerous predators don't announce themselves with fangs and claws. They wear religious robes, speak in measured tones, and build their hunting grounds inside the very institutions people trust most. The man Maya was about to meet had perfected the art of spiritual manipulation, and she was about to become his masterpiece of destruction. Maya Rahman stepped off the Emirates flight from Islamabad with 2 suitcases, a scholarship letter, and dreams that sparkled brighter than Dubai's skyline. 24 years old, fluent in 3 languages, and armed with a master's degree in social work, she represented everything the modern Muslim woman could achieve with determination and faith. Her scholarship covered tuition at the American University of Dubai, but living expenses in one of the world's most expensive cities demanded creative solutions. Maya needed work that wouldn't interfere with her studies, something that honored her values while paying enough to survive. When she spotted the volunteer posting at Noor Center, seeking dynamic individual for youth program coordination, it seemed like divine intervention. Maya's interview with Imam Khalid lasted 30 minutes and sealed her fate. She walked into his office wearing a navy hijab and professional blazer, her resume highlighting experience with community outreach programs back home. Khalid listened as she described her vision for engaging young Muslims in Dubai's multicultural environment, her ideas for mentorship programs, and her passion for bridging generational gaps. "You have exceptional insight for someone so young," Khalid told her, his voice warm with approval. "I believe Allah has brought you to us for a purpose." The position started as pure volunteerism, 20 hours per week coordinating after-school programs, organizing community events, and managing the mosque's social media presence. But Maya's competence quickly made her indispensable. She could calm screaming toddlers during Friday prayers, mediate disputes between teenage volunteers, and write compelling donation appeals that tripled their fundraising targets. Within 6 weeks, Khalid created a paid position for her, administrative assistant for community outreach. The salary wasn't generous, but combined with her scholarship stipend, it covered her tiny studio apartment in Dara and basic living expenses. More importantly, it gave her purpose in a city where loneliness could swallow ambitious young women whole. Maya's responsibilities expanded rapidly. She answered emails, scheduled appointments, coordinated with other Islamic centers across the Emirates, and helped Khalid prepare his sermons. Her organizational skills transformed the mosque's chaotic filing system into a digital database. Her social media posts attracted younger congregants who had never considered regular prayer attendance. Hit subscribe if you want to see how predators identify their victims, because what Maya didn't know was that she just walked into a carefully constructed trap. But Maya felt grateful, not endangered. Here was a respected religious leader who valued her opinions, praised her contributions, and treated her like an intellectual equal. When other young women in Dubai complained about workplace harassment or cultural barriers, Maya counted herself blessed. Imam Khalid never made inappropriate comments, never invaded her personal space, never suggested anything improper. The late-night planning sessions started innocently enough. Youth program logistics required detailed coordination, and Khalid preferred working after evening prayers when the mosque fell quiet. They would sit in his study, discussing budget allocations over mint tea, reviewing volunteer schedules, and planning educational workshops. Maya felt honored that such an important man valued her input enough to seek her counsel when exhaustion should have sent him home to his family. She had no idea those sessions were about to become her nightmare. The transformation began with compliments that felt like answered prayers. "Maya, your proposal for the Women's Empowerment Series is brilliant," Khalid would say, his eyes holding her gaze just a moment longer than necessary. "You have wisdom beyond your years." For a young woman struggling to find her place in a foreign city, these words felt like spiritual validation. Khalid's praise came wrapped in religious authority, making it impossible to question. When he told Maya she was specially gifted by Allah, when he suggested her insights were divinely inspired, when he claimed her presence had elevated the entire mosque community, she accepted these compliments as theological truth rather than calculated manipulation. The boundaries dissolved gradually, almost imperceptibly. Professional meetings stretched past midnight under the guise of important community planning. Khalid began texting Maya directly instead of using official mosque channels, justifying the personal contact as urgent coordination needs. His messages arrived at odd hours, late evening reflections on scripture, early morning requests for her opinion on sermon topics, midnight questions about program logistics that could have waited until morning. "Maya, I've been reflecting on your suggestion about youth mental health resources." One text read at 11:47 p.m. "Your understanding of psychological struggles impresses me deeply. We should discuss this privately. Some topics require discretion." Maya felt chosen, special, trusted with confidential mosque business that other volunteers never accessed. She didn't recognize that Khalid was isolating her, creating a private channel of communication that existed outside normal institutional oversight. When other staff members asked about late-night meetings, Maya felt protective of their important work, rather than suspicious of the secrecy. The physical boundaries shifted with surgical precision. Khalid began placing his hand on Maya's shoulder during particularly emotional discussions about community challenges. "You carry such a heavy burden for someone so young," he would say, his touch lingering as he spoke about her exceptional dedication to Allah's work. When Maya felt uncomfortable, she dismissed her instincts as cultural confusion. Surely a respected Imam's touch carried only paternal blessing. Maya's vulnerability made her the perfect target. Thousands of miles from family, financially dependent on her position, socially isolated in Dubai's competitive expatriate community, she craved belonging and validation. Khalid provided both, but always with strings attached. His approval became her emotional lifeline, his disapproval her greatest fear. "I've been watching you, Maya," he told her during one late-night session. "You're not like other young women your age. Most are distracted by material concerns, but you understand spiritual purpose." The compliment felt like recognition of her deepest hopes about herself, confirmation that her sacrifices to study abroad and serve the community had meaning. Comment: betrayed, if you've ever had someone in power take advantage of your trust. Because what Maya didn't understand was that she'd become the subject of a masterclass in psychological manipulation. Religious authority gave Khalid weapons that secular predators could never access. When he quoted Quranic verses about special relationships between spiritual mentors and devoted students, Maya couldn't argue with scripture. When he spoke about prophetic traditions of private guidance for exceptional individuals, her religious education made her receptive to his interpretations. When he suggested their late-night discussions were blessed by Allah, questioning him felt like questioning God himself. Here was this young woman, alone in a foreign city, thinking she'd found a mentor who valued her mind, her soul, her contributions to sacred work. She saw meaningful guidance where others might have recognized grooming. She felt honored by personal attention that should have triggered alarm bells. She interpreted spiritual manipulation as divine favor. Maya's gratitude made her complicit in her own exploitation. Every "thank you for believing in me" reinforced Khalid's power. Every "I'm so blessed to work with someone like you," fed his sense of control. Every moment she felt chosen rather than targeted moved her deeper into his carefully constructed web. But predators always escalate. The professional praise and spiritual validation were just the foundation. What came next would destroy Maya's sense of reality entirely. 6 months after Maya began working at Noor Center, she and Khalid had developed their own private language. Scripture quotes sent via WhatsApp carried double meanings. Verses about hidden treasures meant he wanted to see her after evening prayers. References to private contemplation signaled their study sessions should remain confidential. Messages disappeared within minutes of delivery, deleted with the methodical precision of someone who understood the stakes. Their clandestine meetings followed a ritual that felt sacred to Maya but calculated to Khalid. After the last congregant departed and the mosque fell silent, Maya would return through the back entrance using her administrative key. Khalid would be waiting in his private study, tea prepared, books open to passages they would never discuss in public. "Tonight we explore advanced theological concepts," he would say, gesturing toward leather-bound texts that had little to do with their actual conversations. These sessions stretched past midnight, filled with increasingly personal revelations. Khalid shared his struggles with the burden of leadership, his loneliness despite public acclaim, his doubts about whether anyone truly understood his spiritual depth. Maya found herself becoming his confessor, his emotional repository, his most trusted confidant. "You're the only person who sees beyond my public role," he told her during one particularly intimate conversation. "With you, I can be authentic." The admission felt like a sacred gift, proof that she alone possessed the spiritual maturity to handle his vulnerabilities. Their physical proximity during these sessions grew more deliberate. Khalid would sit closer when reviewing texts, his hand brushing hers when turning pages. During emotional discussions, he would lean forward, his voice dropping to whispers that required her to move within inches of his face. Maya felt the electricity but interpreted it as spiritual connection rather than manipulation. The study sessions became confessional booths where Maya revealed her own fears, dreams, and struggles. She spoke about feeling isolated in Dubai, about questioning whether she was worthy of her scholarship, about longing for someone who understood her ambitions. Khalid absorbed every detail, filing away her vulnerabilities for future use. "I've never met someone who combines intellectual brilliance with such deep faith," he would tell her, his eyes reflecting candlelight from the desk lamp. "Most people your age are consumed with shallow pursuits, but you understand that true purpose comes from serving Allah through meaningful work." Maya began living for these moments of recognition. During daytime mosque activities, she would catch Khalid's eye across crowded rooms and feel the thrill of shared secrets. When other staff members spoke to him, she felt special knowing she alone possessed access to his private thoughts and struggles. "Are you still watching? Comment yes if this is making your skin crawl," because what Maya didn't know was that every word, every touch, every moment of seeming intimacy was being orchestrated for maximum psychological impact. But secrets create their own gravitational pull, drawing everything into their orbit. Other mosque staff began noticing subtle changes. Maya's increased confidence during meetings, her familiarity with Khalid's preferences, her defensive reactions when anyone questioned mosque policies. The cleaning woman mentioned that Khalid's office light burned later than usual on nights when Maya worked late. A few congregants noticed the way Maya's face would flush when Khalid praised her publicly, or how she would linger after community events as if waiting for something. These observations remained whispered speculation rather than direct accusation. After all, who would dare suggest impropriety involving their beloved Imam? Maya felt protected by their secrecy, unaware that whispers had already begun circulating through Dubai's tight-knit Muslim community. She believed their private world was sacred space, a spiritual partnership blessed by Allah. She had no idea it was actually a carefully constructed trap that was about to spring shut. The first crack in Khalid's perfect facade came on a humid Thursday evening when Zainab Al-Farouk reached for their shared tablet to check her cooking class schedule. Instead of recipe notes, she discovered a notification from an app she didn't recognize, a message thread that made her stomach drop like a stone through water. The message was brief but devastating. Tonight's session was beautiful. I feel closer to Allah when we're together like that. Thank you for seeing the real me. M. Zainab had been married to Khalid for 18 years. She knew his schedule, his habits, his patterns of speech. She knew he had no sessions scheduled for the previous evening. She also knew that no legitimate mosque business would generate messages expressing gratitude for seeing the real me. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through fragments of other conversations, deleted exchanges that had somehow survived in cached data. References to private meetings, mentions of special understanding, expressions of gratitude that carried undertones no wife could mistake. The M signature appeared repeatedly, always in contexts that suggested intimacy far beyond professional collaboration. That night, Zainab confronted her husband in their bedroom while their 3 children slept in adjacent rooms. Who is M? And why is she thanking you for private sessions? The question hung between them like an accusation that could destroy everything they'd built. Khalid's response revealed his years of experience managing crises. He didn't deny the messages. Denial would have been futile. Instead, he positioned himself as the victim of a misunderstood mentorship. Maya is going through spiritual struggles, he explained. She needs guidance that goes beyond regular counseling. You know how young people today question everything. But Zainab wasn't fooled by his practiced deflections. She demanded he end whatever relationship existed between him and this young woman immediately. She threatened to contact the mosque board, to speak with Maya directly, to expose the inappropriate dynamics that were endangering their family's reputation and their children's future. Khalid promised compliance, but promises made under duress often crumble under pressure. Meanwhile, Maya received an envelope that would complicate everything: a scholarship opportunity from the University of Toronto, a full-ride offer that would transform her academic trajectory but require immediate relocation. The opportunity represented escape from Dubai's suffocating social dynamics and a chance to build an independent future. But Maya's potential departure threatened more than just Khalid's emotional attachment. Enter Omar Haddad, the wealthy real estate developer whose donations had funded Noor Center's expansion over the past 5 years. Omar had invested heavily in Khalid's leadership, using the mosque's community influence to legitimize his business dealings and provide networking opportunities with Dubai's Muslim elite. Recent changes in mosque programming had begun affecting Omar's priorities. Resources were being redirected toward initiatives that didn't serve his interests, and he'd noticed that Maya's influence on Khalid's decision-making was growing stronger than his own financial leverage. If you're not subscribed, you're missing the psychology behind why powerful men destroy lives when their control gets threatened. Hit that button now because this gets worse. Omar had built his fortune by eliminating obstacles before they became problems. Young women with foreign scholarships and insider knowledge represented exactly the kind of obstacle he preferred to handle proactively. 3 different agendas were now converging on Maya Rahman. A wife demanding the end of her husband's inappropriate relationship, a manipulative imam losing control of his victim, and a wealthy donor protecting his investment in religious influence. Maya had no idea she was about to become the target of a conspiracy that would cost her everything. Maya Rahman possessed the survival instincts that kept ambitious women alive in hostile environments. Something in Khalid's behavior had shifted after their last private session. His eyes held calculation instead of warmth. His compliments sounded rehearsed rather than genuine. His text messages carried an undertone of desperation that made her skin crawl with unease. The scholarship offer from Toronto sat on her desk like a golden ticket out of a situation she was finally beginning to recognize as dangerous. But Maya had learned not to trust anyone completely, especially men who held her future in their hands. If she was going to leave Dubai, she needed protection against whatever retaliation might follow. Maya's first insurance policy was her phone's voice memo app. During their late-night sessions, she began leaving her device recording from inside her purse, positioned to capture Khalid's increasingly inappropriate confessions. "You make me feel things I shouldn't feel," he had whispered during one particularly charged conversation. "Sometimes I think Allah brought you to test my devotion." The recording captured every word of his spiritual manipulation disguised as romantic confession. Her second protection strategy involved documentation of financial irregularities she'd noticed while managing mosque accounts. Omar Haddad's donations were being redirected through shell companies before reaching their stated charitable purposes. Maya photographed bank statements, copied email exchanges, and saved screenshots of transactions that suggested money laundering disguised as religious giving. But Maya's most damning evidence existed in draft messages she composed but never sent, insurance policies scheduled for delayed delivery if she disappeared. Her most chilling draft read, "If anything happens to me, Khalid knows everything. Check the mosque accounts. Follow Omar Haddad's money. I have recordings of conversations that will destroy reputations." She confided in Fatima, her closest friend from university days, during a panicked phone call to Pakistan. "Something feels wrong here," Maya admitted. "The Imam is getting too close, asking too many personal questions, and there's money moving through this mosque that doesn't add up. I'm documenting everything just in case." Fatima urged immediate departure, but Maya felt trapped by practical considerations. Breaking her employment contract would jeopardize her scholarship status. Leaving without proper documentation of the financial misconduct would allow corruption to continue unchecked. Most importantly, running away felt like abandoning the community members who genuinely needed the programs she'd helped create. Have you ever documented evidence against someone powerful? Tell us in the comments, because Maya was about to learn that collecting proof against dangerous men requires more than good intentions. Maya's documentation efforts didn't go unnoticed. Khalid began asking pointed questions about her after-hours computer usage, her increased attention to financial records, her conversations with people outside the mosque community. His questions carried threats wrapped in pastoral concern. "I worry that external influences might be affecting your spiritual focus, Maya. Sometimes isolation from negative voices helps maintain clarity." The recordings Maya left as drafts would eventually become her voice from beyond the grave, testimony that would expose a conspiracy reaching into Dubai's highest circles of power. But first, she had to survive long enough for anyone to hear them. Maya Rahman was about to discover that documenting evidence against powerful men often becomes a death sentence disguised as self-protection. Omar Haddad built his real estate empire by reading people like financial statements, understanding their assets, liabilities, and breaking points before they recognized these vulnerabilities themselves. When whispered rumors about Imam Khalid's inappropriate relationship with Maya Rahman reached his ears during a private business dinner, Omar didn't feel moral outrage. He felt strategic opportunity. For 5 years, Omar had invested heavily in Khalid's leadership at Noor Center, not from religious devotion but from calculated self-interest. The mosque's influential congregation included government officials, wealthy expatriates, and business leaders whose favor could open doors worth millions. Khalid's progressive reputation provided Omar with social legitimacy that money alone couldn't purchase. But Maya's growing influence over Khalid threatened Omar's carefully constructed network. Recent mosque programs reflected her priorities rather than his preferences. Community funds were being redirected toward youth education and women's empowerment, instead of the infrastructure projects that benefited Omar's construction companies. Most dangerously, Maya had access to financial records that could expose the creative accounting that channeled Omar's donations through multiple shell companies. Omar's investigation into Maya's background revealed exactly what he'd feared: an intelligent young woman with nothing to lose and everything to gain from exposing corruption. Her scholarship application included research proposals about financial transparency in religious institutions. Her academic background in social work meant she understood how to document abuse and navigate legal systems. The phone call that sealed Maya's fate came on a Wednesday evening when Omar contacted Rami Jaber, a man whose criminal resume included intimidation, money collection, and what law enforcement euphemistically called problem resolution. Rami had served 18 months for assault before reinventing himself as a security consultant for businesses that required discretion in their conflict management. "I need you to handle a situation at the mosque," Omar explained during their meeting at a private office in Dubai International Financial Center. "There's a young woman causing problems for community stability. She needs to understand the consequences of interfering with established relationships." Omar's instructions were specific but carefully vague. language that provided legal deniability while communicating clear intentions. Make sure she understands that some secrets are too dangerous to share, he told Rami. Use whatever methods ensure she chooses to leave Dubai quietly, without causing further disruption. The logistics fell into place with military precision. Omar provided Rami with access to his white Mercedes SUV, registered under one of his subsidiary companies. Financial transfers moved through 3 different shell companies before reaching Rami's consulting firm, creating a paper trail that would require forensic accounting to trace back to its source. Rami's expertise extended beyond physical intimidation. His network included former medical technicians who could provide pharmaceutical assistance for jobs requiring chemical persuasion. The sedative they selected, a powerful hypnotic agent typically used in surgical procedures, would render Maya unconscious within minutes while remaining difficult to detect in standard toxicology screening. Subscribe or you'll miss how the wealthy manipulate violence from the shadows. Because what Omar planned next shows exactly how money can purchase anything, including murder. Omar's plan reflected his business philosophy: eliminate problems before they become crises, leave no traceable connections between cause and effect, and ensure that solutions appear to result from natural consequences rather than deliberate intervention. Maya's death would look like random urban violence, the kind of tragedy that occurred when young women walked alone in Dubai's less secure neighborhoods. The final piece of Omar's strategy involved timing. Maya's scholarship departure date provided perfect cover. A young woman preparing to leave the country suddenly becomes the victim of robbery gone wrong. Her disappearance would be tragic but unremarkable. Another cautionary tale about personal safety in a cosmopolitan city. Rami received his final instructions during a brief meeting in the parking garage beneath Omar's office complex. Make it look like street crime, Omar instructed. No connection to the mosque, no evidence linking back to community disputes. Just another unfortunate incident that reminds people about the importance of staying within safe boundaries. What Omar hadn't anticipated was Maya's survival instincts. Her voice recordings, scheduled message drafts, and documented evidence would survive her death, creating a testimony that would expose the conspiracy despite their careful planning. But first, Maya Rahman had to die. And on a humid Dubai night, when the call to evening prayers faded into urban silence, Rami Jaber began following his target with professional precision and lethal intent. Maya Rahman's final evening began with the call to Maghrib prayers echoing across Dubai's skyline. She had just finished updating the mosque's volunteer schedule when her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Community emergency meeting tonight. Imam Khalid requests your immediate assistance. Meet at Al Bahar Coffee House, back entrance. Urgent. The message felt odd. Why meet at a coffee shop instead of the mosque? But Maya had learned not to question Khalid's unusual requests, especially when they involved urgent community matters. She grabbed her purse, checked that her phone was fully charged, and headed into the humid Dubai night that would become her last. Al Bahar Coffee House occupied a corner building in Dara, its front entrance bustling with evening customers, while the service lane behind remained deserted after business hours. Maya arrived at 9:47 p.m. according to security footage, her white hijab visible under street lighting, as she walked toward the back entrance carrying her favorite coffee cup, a ceramic mug with Arabic calligraphy that she'd purchased during her first week in Dubai. Rami Jaber had been waiting in Omar's white Mercedes SUV for 20 minutes, watching Maya approach through tinted windows. His medical contact had assured him the sedative would work quickly, 30 seconds of consciousness after injection, then complete unconsciousness within 2 minutes. The plan was surgical. Approach from behind, inject the drug, stage the robbery scene, and disappear before anyone discovered the body. But Maya's survival instincts activated the moment she felt someone approaching from behind. She spun around to face Rami, her coffee cup raised defensively, her voice sharp with alarm. "Who are you? What do you want?" The confrontation Rami had hoped to avoid was now inevitable. "Just give me your purse," Rami said, playing his role as a street robber. "Don't make this complicated." But Maya recognized something in his eyes. This wasn't random crime. This was targeted violence. She threw her coffee cup at his face and ran toward the street, screaming for help in Arabic and English. Rami caught her within 50 meters, his hand clamping over her mouth as he dragged her back into the service lane's shadows. The injection came next, a needle into her neck that delivered enough sedative to stop an elephant. Maya's struggles weakened within seconds as the drug entered her bloodstream, but Rami had miscalculated the dosage. What should have been unconsciousness became respiratory failure. Maya's breathing became shallow, then irregular, then stopped altogether as the powerful hypnotic agent overwhelmed her nervous system. What Omar had ordered as intimidation had become accidental murder. Panic drove Rami's actions over the next 30 minutes. He staged the robbery scene with amateur precision. Maya's purse contents scattered across concrete, her coffee cup smashed against the service lane wall, her hijab pulled askew to suggest a struggle. He removed her jewelry and cash to make theft appear credible, but left her phone, a mistake that would prove fatal to the conspiracy. The head wound came last, delivered with a concrete block to create evidence of blunt force trauma that could explain her death without revealing the sedative. But Rami's forensic knowledge was limited. He didn't understand that toxicology examinations would reveal the real cause of death, regardless of superficial injuries. By 11:15 p.m., Maya Rahman was dead, and Rami Jaber was driving Omar's SUV back to the financial district, believing he'd successfully completed a contract killing disguised as street crime. The sedative in Maya's system would tell a different story to investigators, as would the restraint bruises on her wrists and the complete absence of defensive wounds typically found in robbery victims. Comment where you think justice should start in cases like this, because Maya's death was just the beginning of an investigation that would expose corruption reaching Dubai's highest circles. Maya's scheduled message drafts remained queued in her phone, waiting for the delayed delivery that would make her voice heard from beyond death. Her recordings were intact. Her documented evidence of financial corruption remained accessible. The young woman who died trying to escape a conspiracy had left behind enough proof to destroy everyone involved. But first, someone had to find her body. Detective Layla Mansour had worked homicide for 12 years, long enough to recognize when a crime scene was performing theater instead of telling truth. Maya Rahman's body, discovered at 6:23 a.m. by a sanitation worker, displayed all the classic elements of robbery gone wrong, except for the details that made no sense. Real robbery victims fought back. Maya's fingernails were clean, no skin or blood suggesting defensive wounds. Real thieves grabbed valuables quickly. Maya's expensive smartphone remained untouched in her purse pocket. Real street criminals avoided deserted service lanes where screaming victims might escape. This killer had chosen isolation over accessibility, suggesting premeditation rather than opportunity. Layla's methodical approach began with Maya's phone, which revealed a digital trail that contradicted the robbery theory completely. The scheduled message drafts, discovered during forensic analysis, contained accusations that made Layla's blood pressure spike. If anything happens to me, Khalid knows everything. Check the mosque accounts. Follow Omar Haddad's money. The toxicology report confirmed Layla's instincts. Maya's system contained traces of midazolam, a powerful sedative used in surgical procedures and definitely not available to common street criminals. The concentration levels indicated massive overdose, enough to kill within minutes of injection. The head wound was superficial, delivered after death to create misleading evidence. Phone records opened the conspiracy like a roadmap to corruption. Maya's call history showed repeated late-night conversations with Imam Khalid's landline, including a 2-hour call the night before her death. Financial app data revealed Maya had been photographing bank statements and transaction records for weeks before her murder. But the breakthrough came from security footage that prosecutors would later call the smoking gun. CCTV from the mosque's rear corridor showed Khalid leaving his office at 11:47 p.m. 3 days before Maya's death. Unusual timing for a married man with young children. More damning was footage from the coffee shop area showing a white Mercedes SUV circling the service lane twice before parking in shadows. Registration records connected the SUV to Haddad Construction Limited, one of Omar's subsidiary companies. Vehicle tracking data showed the SUV had visited the coffee shop location multiple times over the past week, always during evening hours when Maya typically finished her mosque duties. Layla's financial investigation exposed the money trail that connected all conspirators. Shell company transactions showed payments flowing from Omar's charitable foundation to RC Security Consulting, Rami Jaber's one-man operation, in amounts that suggested professional services rather than legitimate business expenses. When Layla arrested Rami at his apartment in Sharjah, his nervous breakdown provided the confession that cracked the entire conspiracy. Omar said, "Just scare her," Rami babbled during interrogation. "Make her understand leaving Dubai was the smart choice. It wasn't supposed to be murder. The dosage was wrong. She stopped breathing. I panicked." What the courtroom revealed will shock you even more than the murder itself, because Maya's death exposed a network of corruption that reached into Dubai's most respected institutions. Omar Haddad's arrest required coordination with financial crimes units across 3 emirates. His real estate empire had been using mosque donations for money laundering operations worth millions of dirhams. Khalid's arrest shocked the Muslim community, but police found evidence of his complicity in the cover-up attempt and obstruction of justice. Maya's voice recordings, recovered from cloud storage backups, provided testimony from beyond death. Her careful documentation of inappropriate conversations with Khalid and suspicious financial transactions became the prosecution's most powerful evidence. The young woman who died trying to escape had left behind proof that would convict her killers. The investigation took 8 months to complete, but Maya Rahman's methodical evidence collection had done most of the detective work before her death. Justice would finally be served, though it came too late to save the brilliant young woman whose only crime was trusting the wrong people. The Dubai Court of First Instance had never hosted a trial that split public opinion quite like the Maya Rahman murder case. When proceedings began 8 months after her death, the courtroom overflowed with journalists, community leaders, and ordinary citizens desperate to understand how their trusted institutions had harbored such corruption. Rami Jaber took the witness stand as the prosecution's star informant, his testimony changing multiple times as defense attorneys exposed inconsistencies in his story. "Omar told me to follow her, scare her into leaving Dubai quietly," Rami claimed during his final testimony. He said she was causing problems for community stability. The sedative was supposed to make her compliant, not kill her. The evidence spoke louder than Rami's shifting confessions. Forensic accountants presented financial records showing payments of 847,000 dirhams flowing from Omar's shell companies to Rami's consulting firm over 6 weeks. Medical experts testified that the midazolam concentration in Maya's system exceeded therapeutic levels by 400%, a dosage that guaranteed death rather than unconsciousness. Omar Haddad's defense team argued their client never intended violence, claiming the payments represented legitimate security consultations for his business empire. But prosecutors played Maya's recorded conversations, her voice describing threats and intimidation that directly contradicted Omar's claims of innocence. Khalid's testimony became the trial's most dramatic moment. Forced to address his relationship with Maya under oath, he admitted emotional involvement, while insisting their interactions remained appropriate within Islamic guidelines. The courtroom erupted when prosecutors played recordings of his late-night confessions to Maya, his voice expressing feelings that no religious authority should harbor for a young subordinate. The verdicts reflected the complexity of conspiracy cases where intent becomes crucial for determining guilt. Rami Jaber received 22 years for manslaughter, his sentence reduced due to cooperation with investigators. Omar Haddad was convicted of conspiracy to commit intimidation and obstruction of justice, receiving 15 years plus financial penalties exceeding 12 million dirhams. Khalid escaped murder charges due to insufficient evidence of direct participation in the killing, but faced professional destruction more complete than any prison sentence. The Islamic Council stripped him of his religious authority, banned him from leading prayers, and recommended psychological evaluation before any future community involvement. If you're still not subscribed after seeing how power protects itself, I don't know what will convince you. Hit that button because cases like this expose how justice really works. Maya's mother, who had flown from Pakistan for the trial, addressed the court during victim impact statements. "My daughter died because she trusted people who saw her ambition as a threat. No family should endure this pain because religious leaders abuse their authority." The convictions provided legal closure, But questions about institutional failure and community complicity would haunt Dubai's Muslim leadership for years to come. Maya Rahman's death certificate listed her cause of death as acute respiratory failure due to drug overdose. But her true legacy became something far more powerful than medical terminology could capture. Within 6 months of her murder, her name had become a rallying cry for institutional reform across Dubai's religious community. The Noor Center reopened under completely new leadership, implementing safeguarding policies that Maya herself had proposed in her final weeks. Anonymous complaint systems, mandatory background checks for all staff, and 2-person rules for private meetings became standard practice. Other mosques across the Emirates adopted similar measures, creating the kind of protection Maya had needed but never received. Her mother's advocacy campaign resulted in legal changes that strengthened protections for religious institution volunteers. The Maya Rahman Act required transparent financial reporting from all charitable organizations and established criminal penalties for religious leaders who abused their positions of trust. Dubai's law enforcement agencies created specialized units trained to investigate corruption within community organizations, recognizing that traditional approaches often failed when dealing with institutions that commanded automatic respect and trust from the public. But Maya's most lasting impact lived in the recorded evidence she left behind, proof that young people could document abuse even when facing overwhelming power imbalances. Her voice recordings became training materials for investigators, demonstrating how victims could protect themselves by creating evidence trails that survive beyond death. The case revealed uncomfortable truths about how communities protect predators when those predators wear religious authority like armor. Maya's story forced difficult conversations about accountability, oversight, and the dangerous assumption that spiritual leaders operate above human temptation. 3 years after her death, Maya Rahman's scholarship fund has supported 47 young women pursuing social work degrees, each recipient trained in recognizing and documenting institutional abuse. Her name appears on a memorial garden at the American University of Dubai, where students learn that courage sometimes means exposing uncomfortable truths about trusted authorities. The most brutal lesson from Maya's case remains achingly simple. Secrets maintained through fear and manipulation will eventually destroy more lives than the truth ever could. When religious authority becomes a weapon for exploitation, entire communities become complicit in enabling predators. Maya Rahman died trying to escape a conspiracy, but her voice continues speaking truth to power from beyond death, reminding us that justice requires ordinary people to document extraordinary crimes, even when that documentation costs them everything. Thank you for watching until the end. Maya's story matters because it exposes how corruption hides behind respectability. If this opened your eyes to institutional abuse, hit that like button, subscribe for more cases that mainstream media won't touch, and turn on notifications so you never miss investigations that reveal how power really operates in our world.